something about this. I'm in North Claremont, and we've called the police, and they've come out, and nothing seems to be happening. And we get multiple cars on the weekend, and it's disgusting. I'll be honest with you, it's absolutely to live in a community like this and have strange people coming in. Neighborhood watch does you no good because it's a constant thing. I mean, what about that? About the issue of renting out rooms, especially in North Claremont. It's a rural area. It's not a local area. What can be done about the scourge? Because I know that in Blaisdell, they've got a bit, word of mouth. I mean, I'm not destitute, but they've got a huge party house. I mean, these are huge problems for the neighbors, and I mean, I'm sure they are for you. So is there something being done? Is there something being done?
I'm very aware of the house that you're referring to, and I could assure you that the police department and our code enforcement are working very diligently on that house. Unfortunately, the laws are not working in our favor. The bank, or this particular house, was a foreclosure. There's no victim other than the bank, and they're going through the foreclosure process, and it has switched hands a few times with the banks. Once that squatter gets in that house and established residency, now there has to be an eviction process. And it sounds ridiculous, and I completely agree, and if I could go change the law, I would. But that's the situation with that house. The only way to remove them from the house is if there's some sort of illegal activity happening, or the bank goes through the process of eviction. And unfortunately, that takes time. And to rent out a room for less than 30 days is a violation of our municipal code. I know those people that are the squatters are not in this room, so I'll tell you that we have been working on some undercover operations to try to identify the specific person that's responsible, and we're also working with Airbnb. And I understand you guys have had a lot of patience, but this is something that takes a little bit of time because the occupants of the house they're not the people that are responsible for the Airbnb. So there's people we have to go through in order to figure out the person responsible. But I assure you that that's a work in process, and we understand the situation. It was a residential burglary, and from what we could tell, there's absolutely no connection to that particular house. Yeah, I'm not aware of that. And so what code enforcement does now, they have a list of all houses that are going to go into foreclosure, and they drive around regularly to make sure that, because the key thing is for us to know right away when that person is squatting in that house so we can get them out before they establish residency. And that could mean putting utilities in their name or whatnot. So if you guys have a vacant house in your neighborhood, and you know it's a foreclosure or bank owned, the minute you see a car in the driveway that you don't recognize, help the police department, help code enforcement, and notify us right away so we can make sure that they're out of there before they establish residency.
What does it take them to establish residency if they get into that?
Well, typically you have a victim. If it was your house and you weren't living there, you could tell me, hey, anybody in that house, I want them arrested for trespassing. But in this case, there is no person, it's the bank. And they're going through the foreclosure process, and it jumped banks a couple times. There's a lot to that particular house. But typically, as soon as they, to answer your question, as soon as they pay rent to somebody, which I'll get into, or open up utilities, which is what these people did. They called Edison and got electricity. They have the water turned on. Now they've established residency. Other times, somebody will take possession of a house and rent it out to somebody else, even though it's not their house to rent out. So now the people in the house are victims. They've paid a bunch of money first and last and all that for this house to somebody that it wasn't even their property to rent out. So the bottom line is when you're watching your neighborhood, if you do have a house like that, let us know right away if you see somebody. You know, even if it ends up to be somebody from the bank and we confirm that, we appreciate the call. So we all need to help prevent these houses from being occupied. It's not legal. It's just there's a process that takes a little bit of time to get them removed. Go ahead, Ewing.
When an alarm is sounded, what is the range of time it takes you to get to that house, and what's the average time?
Well, with the alarms, when alarms are sounding, it's either going to be that the neighbors are calling in. Usually when the alarm is activated, the alarm company, they have a process by which they'll call the house to make sure you didn't set it off accidentally, you forgot, and you walked out the door. Sometimes they'll call the home. Then if they don't get a response there, they'll call a responsible. And then if they don't get a response, then they'll call us. So it can be, within a minute to 4 to 5 minutes before the police department gets that response. Or gets that phone call that, hey, this alarm's going off, and then depending on where the officer is at the time. So the officer could be right around the corner, and he's already there on scene. We strive to try to make it under 4 minutes to our calls. But it could be up to a 10-minute delay depending on what the alarm company, because we're not standing there. My ears are not that good. I'm not standing around listening for the alarm. But with the way that the alarm company works, it could take some time, and so that can be a frustrating part.
Remember, that's up to you to set up with your alarm system. If you want them to call the police directly, then that gets us there that much faster. Or if you don't want those false alarms, so they call you, and if you're not available, then they call another relative, and then they call somebody else before they call the police. That, like Lieutenant Cesar was saying, that adds time to our response. But once we get the call, our average is less than 4 minutes. Anything you can do to keep people out of your house, slow them down, it works.
Is that much more of an added deterrent to these folks. So anything you can add on, even though it might sound ridiculous, when I leave, I turn on the radio in the back room. It may sound like somebody's back there doing work at a computer at their desk. Anything, everything else. There's not one bad thing other than maybe I'm going to leave and leave my door open so they don't kick it down. That would be a bad thing. Everything else, by all means, lights on, radios on, loop the blinds, whatever it might be that helps make you feel more secure in your home is probably more than likely a good idea. Yes.
Are dogs much of a deterrent to these or getting around?
I'm going to say it depends if it's an ankle biter. But by and large, like I said, the fact that they have a dog, they don't want to risk the chance of getting bit. If you got a dog, as soon as you walk up and it just lays on its stomach and wants its belly rubbed, pretty good indication you could probably get in the backyard. But by and large, if you have an animal, a dog, they're not going to come in.
Larry? We do have automatic license plate readers in the city. There's about 40 cameras. It's attached to a database system that looks for stolen vehicles or vehicles with warrants associated to the vehicle. We could also put in the system what we call BOLOs, be on the lookout. So if we know a vehicle is involved in residential burglaries, we can put in the system, and then if it happens to pass random cameras in the city, it'll notify our dispatch that this vehicle just hit this camera, and it provides the information to our dispatch. Our dispatch then provides that to our officers in the field who could respond to the area and try and locate that vehicle. It's been very successful since we've had the system. We've located over 250 stolen vehicles, occupied, so the people went to jail. We were able to get the vehicles back to their owners, and we've made over 500 arrests. The key thing with the stolen vehicles is typically when they're coming into the city, they're not driving their vehicle because they want to go commit other crimes. So there's no way to tell what crimes have been prevented because of those vehicles being stopped and the people apprehended, but it's been a very successful system. The key thing for you to know is the only thing that the camera sees is the back license plate and the back portion of the vehicle. We can't tell who's driving the vehicle. We can't see the occupants. So there's an element of investigation that goes along with it, but it does provide us a resource that has been very effective.
I went out and saw a vehicle that I didn't like, and I thought it was my sister's vehicle. I got a
Which, unfortunately, it's a constant battle with, as we get smarter, the criminals find other ways to get around things. So, it doesn't pick up dealership plates. So if you're in a vehicle with no plate at all, and you see somebody driving your neighborhood, and it's a nice vehicle, no plate, but they're just driving around randomly, there's probably a reason why that would be where you're like, that's suspicious. I need to call the police department. But yeah, it's just a tool. It's just a tool. Somebody just gave me a signal to make a very good point. Thank you. I appreciate it. We all have our cell phones around now with cameras on it. So if you're in a position where you can take a picture of the vehicle or the person at your front door through the window or whatnot, we now have facial recognition, which goes off of booking photos and other databases that has been very effective to apprehend criminals as well. And with the outburst cameras, if all you see is a red sedan and it was going in this direction, we could literally go through the system and look for all red sedans. So a picture of the vehicle or just a basic description always helps.
I have a question regarding your safety when you come out on a call. How do you feel about looking into the home? Should we leave our curtains partially open so you can see in, or does that make it even worse so they can see you coming?
All the officers we have at Officer Safety, we all approach houses in a tactically sound way. The first thing I'll give is an education. If we're on the scene going to an alarm or a burglary alarm or whatnot, how many times I had citizens will come and say, "Hey, they're on vacation. Officer, anything I can help you with?" Because here I'm trying to be sneaky here, and they just called my bluff. So if you see us, let us handle the call. Then you can come out and talk to us. We'd be more than happy to talk to you about that. As far as inside, yes, it's always nice for us to be able to look in, but it also, so can the criminals. You talk about window shopping. Criminals window shop. It happens to be a window in your car, window in your house. I will tell you that we have had a crime where the guy was looking through the back window of the sliding glass door. We were able to see the nice smudge marks. We were able to get DNA off of that and found the suspect based on the DNA smudge. That helped us out immensely. So we will try to do what we can do. Like I said, this job is inherently dangerous. There are going to be calculated risks that we may have to take. We want to minimize those risks, but the bottom line is that we know what we're getting into. You need to do what it's going to do to target harden your house. And I would feel more comfortable if I was my house, I'd keep the blinds closed because I don't want them to see what I have. I appreciate
Thank you.
that question.
That saves me a lot of time leaving the house. I've been opening the curtains for you guys.
Right.
Service where you come to the house and see how burglar-proof our house is. Do you offer that service where you'd walk through the house and say, well, I see this and I see that, and this would be a good idea to fix?
For a nominal fee. No. Want to handle that, Buzz?
By all means, we would. If you give a call into dispatch and ask them to have an officer to respond to your home, they will. All of our officers are well versed as far as what would need to be done to harden your house. So if there's anyone that's out there that would request that, call into dispatch, ask for an officer to respond, have them come up to your home, and have them walk around the house with you and ask them questions. If there's any questions of, is this window secure? Does this door look sound? And they should be able to help you out with that. Other questions?
Could you elaborate on when people are soliciting, knocking on your door, are they supposed to have like permits, and are certain people allowed to do that? How does that whole work? How do we know when we're supposed to call you?
So solicitation, they are required to get a permit through the city. They get fingerprinted through us, and they will have that permit. They're supposed to have that with them when they're soliciting. If it's basically if they're hanging door hangers, they're advertising something, that's not part of the municipal code that deals with that. Or if they're soliciting for nonprofit, so political, that's not that. But if they're coming to sell the solar system, or hey, I just painted your numbers on your curb, I need $25, that's going to be the problem. That's the one we're going to have to you call us on. And what we're looking at is that because it's a municipal code violation, it's considered a misdemeanor, that we have to have either the officer has to see it occur, or we have to have you saying that person right there in the red shirt, he was trying to solicit and asking for money. Now we can basically do the private person's arrest. We can write the citation with you as the witness. So a lot of times, like this individual back here was saying that you didn't want to have to go to court 3 times. There may be the fact that, I'm writing this ticket and I can testify on your behalf, but if there comes to a point where they need to say, well, who was the witness that saw that? And a lot of people go, I don't want to do that. You have to help us help you. So it just has to be that.
But regardless of whether you want to press charges, a lot of times these people are from out of state. They're going from state to state to state. They may be running from warrants in other states, have past criminal activity. Not all of them, but some of them. A lot of times the magazine sales, people are in that situation. If you sell magazines, sorry, but sometimes that... So regardless of whether you want to press charges, we want to know that those people are active in your neighborhood and call us every time. So we've had things happen in the past, which some of you may be aware of, people knocking on doors and then eventually criminal activity happens. Even if we don't end up giving them a citation or arresting them, we're going to tell them and make them get out of town. So call us.
And there's a photo of what the permit looks like on.
You said nonprofits can solicit.
They can,
Religious
yeah.
cannot.
If they're trying to sway your vote or change your religion, there's nothing we can do about that.
Yes. I have so many questions, but anyways, there's this one pressing one that's about dash cameras for civilians. I've heard about that maybe on some radio stations. Not sure.
Sorry, were you asking about the legality of a dash camera?
Yeah, yes, I was.
I haven't heard anything pro or against that.
Okay, so it wouldn't be allowed for civilians, or would it?
Well, anybody could sue you for just about anything. So if you captured my image on your camera and used it to do something that I thought was inappropriate, I might sue you for that. So there's that part of it. But nothing that just strictly forbids the use of those. I mean, you see people on their bikes, their skateboards, their whatever else with their GoPro cameras on their helmets filming all their activities and stuff like that. So they're more and more common, and I would imagine they're going to become even more common. Now, if there was we're at the scene of a big collision and you said, hey, I have a dashboard camera, I'm going to want to see that, right? So it's great in that instance. So,
Good.
yeah. So, if it can't obstruct your view when it's attached to your windshield and all the typical, stuff that would go along with anything that you'd hang from your mirror and stuff like that.
showing up soliciting as bail bondsman. We had two gentlemen come up to my doorstep less than 6 months ago, posing. I don't know. They might have been bail bondsmen, but they were looking for someone. They had personal information. They said they found off a skip trace. I called Claremont PD. They showed up within a few minutes, but they had already left. So I was curious if that was something that you had seen. Well, perhaps, yeah.
If they're bail bondsmen, if they're legitimate, they may not contact us. Like I said, we do have times where law enforcement, other law enforcement agencies will let us know if they're in the city. Bail bondsmen, it's kind of 6 one, half a dozen the other. So,
But that's uncommon, and it's weird. And
It was at 9 o'clock.
yeah,
I didn't even know.
I think that you should be calling about something like that. That's weird. One of the tactics that they do use is, knock, knock, knock. Oh, I was looking for Aaron Fate. Doesn't he live here? And you go, no, I don't know who that guy is. Okay, well, now they know that you're home, and so now they're not going to break into your house, possibly. And these guys could have been using the same nonsense story as bail bondsmen, posing and doing that around. It's not something that I've heard of being used frequently, but it absolutely could be. So I would definitely call for that.
and we just had I don't know, a couple months back, with same thing where these were kids. One was a adult, one was a juvenile that had gone up to a house and was knocking and asking, "Hey, I'm looking for so and so," and the neighbor called. The person they knocked on the door called right away. We were able to get undercover officers up in the area and witnessed the individuals coming out of a backyard, and they were detained and then subsequently arrested. And we found evidence that he had been in 3 or 4 different backyards, trying to smash windows, trying to get in. And now those people are off the street, which is great. So.
Those particular people were responsible for a whole bunch more burglaries that they had already committed. And that's really kind of a common thing that we see. When you catch somebody that is burglarizing a house, it's usually not their first time. And a lot of times we'll see a decline in some of the activity that's going on in the city after we get an individual or a group of people that are doing it. So just that one phone call that leads to one person getting caught can really impact the prevention of further criminal activity. And in some cases, it's led us back to houses where they have stolen property from different cities, counties, because that's what they do. When you wake up and go to work, they wake up and go to work too. Only they're going to work to break into people's houses. I would say in my experience personally, not typically. And part of the reason, Lieutenant Cizik was mentioning those gun enhancements and whatnot, well, that was kind of a big deal. If you get caught with a gun, you're going away. And we'll have to see how the changes in some of that stuff has an impact. But typically, in my experience, that's not the case. You have the right to defend yourself. Yes. Yeah. Any other questions? If you guys have questions that you don't feel comfortable asking in this setting, please come see us afterwards so that we can answer those for you. And again, thank you all so very much for taking the time to come out here and see us tonight. We really, really appreciate it.
Give me 1 second. And folks, for those of you who are still here, my contact information is up on the board. If not, I have business cards at the back table. Feel free to email or call me as well.